I've been writing since about 1992. And I was published a little bit as a fiction writer back in the late 90s, and I sucked. I was awful. The stories were horrible, but they were interesting enough to actually get me published. The writing was horrific. I wish they had Grammarly then. I'll tell you, it would have been a lot better experience. But I wanted to write this book, and I wanted a book that was going to actually help people. Whether they read the book or not, it's a tool to teach with. You don't have to read the whole book. I'll tell you what chapter to go read or what section to go read. Go check this stuff out from this. And that has to do with the three horses. I asked my wife to paint the cover. Now, my wife is, if you see her personal work, it's more abstract. It's not, she doesn't do a lot of realist work. So I said, I want three horses. And she's like, okay, great. And it's, how do you want them? I said, I want three horses running through water. She says, oh, realistic. So she had to pick up an anatomy book. If you're not aware, artists need anatomy books if they're going to do figures, so they can see the internal workings and they can get the bodies and the shapes right. So we go to the flea market every weekend in the summer till we get burnt out on it looking for gems. I don't know if any of you do that. It's a lot of fun. So you go to the flea market and you might just find this really great thing and you buy it, you go home, look it up, it's worth less than you paid for it. But you hope. And we were doing our usual walking around, and she walks by a vendor who's there who sells tools all the time. And she needed these anatomy books because she agreed to do the cover of the book. So she finds a wood crate sitting on the ground filled with, guess what? Horse anatomy books.
Wow.
And a perfect one so she can get the structure of the horse's bodies for the cover.
True story.
True story. That's why I brought the book.
Wow.
There's one other, and I don't know. I must have left it at the house, but I'll tell you the story anyway. I hit a spot around the middle of the book. I had just finished The Three Horses. And that section in the book covers this base metaphoric philosophy. We don't get too childish in here with the horses, but what I want you to do is to be able to have a simple envisioning of what you have. So you've got desire, passion, persistence. Those are your powerhouses. You've got your chariot. That's what's carrying your goal. That's your goal. That's what you're standing on. The wheels are all these minor goals. The stuff that Phil just absolutely loves. You listen to his stories about real estate. He loves those wheels. He's always got something else going. His bigger goal isn't that one deal, but those deals would be, Phil's wheels on his chariot. So, and then you got the rider you, which you're trying to perfect, and that's where we're getting into. We got the whole horses down. Here's what it is. Now I got to teach you how to apply it. And I ran into this huge block because if you haven't read Napoleon Hill or Dale Carnegie, these are not little tiny philosophies that you apply to your life. They're studies. And I wanted to try to simplify that and bring it to people so we could, as an introduction into these philosophies of success. Because that's what I want. I want everyone I know to be more successful than I am. If I do that, then I've won. That's my game. That's the goal I'm shooting for. So I ran into this writer's block, and in the mail, one afternoon, you get the junk mail, you set it all aside, and we're sitting down there, and my wife and I are having dinner, and I'm going through the junk mail, and there's a catalog in there. And it's addressed to me. It doesn't say to residents. It says to Todd Radis. His catalog is for equestrian products, for horse products. I've never owned a horse. I have never gotten a catalog before, and I have never gotten a catalog since. And that night, I have a habit of meditating when I'm laying down just before I go to sleep. And that's how I clear my mind and stay calm and get inspired and do everything. It's something I just started, in the last year. The next morning, I woke up and I laid out the next 150 pages in a week. So the first draft was done. Now, in this book, I talk about persistence. I'm going to tell you, if you actually want to write a book and not hire somebody to do it for you, this is real work. It's not just laying down that manuscript. You can have all the manuscripts you want. This was version 13 with this cover. 5 hard rewrites and 3 different editors. Okay? That's why I originally planned on taking this to Secret Knot at the end of summer there in September. It was not happening. That book was not ready. It wasn't up to my standard. And don't get me wrong, this isn't Pulitzer Prize material, but it works. The goal is in here, to get people to learn. All the way until Thursday evening, we had all these things that were not finished yet. The manuscript was still going through edit. Larry's forward wasn't in there yet. And if you've ever dealt with Amazon, it's 24 to 48 hours to get one of your updates posted, because they all go through manual review on the paperbacks. So I get a hold of Zeth Green, and he's the marketing company. He owns a marketing company who helped me market the book and hit my #1 status yesterday. And Zeth Green says to me, he says, this cover is beautiful. He says, there's one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen on a book that's ever been before me. I said, great. He says, it screams little girl horse book, and I need you to change it.
Oh, not happening.
Oh, no. This is the new cover for the book. By Thursday afternoon, Catherine and I sat down, we redesigned this cover, we got it posted, and it posted about 6 hours before the book went live on official launch.
So these books are worth like a lot more money.
If I'm famous, you guys have a charmer here, because there are only 30 copies with this cover.
Yes.
So that's a winner.
Let's put this in the safe.
And I
Laminated. You can read it.
laminate it, put it in a paper bag, or a plastic bag, do whatever you have to do to keep it. But yeah, there's 30 copies of that cover. And the perseverance that it took to get here, because I knew how to write a manuscript, I had no idea how to publish a book. So I had some great help, thanks to people that I've met through here. And that's why I'm so grateful to everybody in this room, because if it wasn't for Larry, I wouldn't have met Greg Reed. I wouldn't have met Seth Green. I wouldn't have met authors. And that's how I got it done. I didn't get it done by myself. I did the work, but I didn't put out a readable book by myself. I also had 3 experiences where I sent it out for test reads. And the first review from the test read is a good friend of mine, John. He's not here today. I actually mentioned him in the book, if you look at the acknowledgments in the front. John I had one editor go through it. He says, it's in perfect grammar. He says, who wrote it? He said, it does not sound like you. It's awful. He said, I don't know what your editor did, but if I read this book, I would not have known you wrote it. Now, this is a guy I've been very close with for 6 months. So that was the first major obstacle, and that was the first rewrite. I actually tore it down and rewrote the entire book after that. I wanted it to be good. It didn't have to be perfect, because you're never going to get perfection. Right? You got to make your mistakes. You got to bump your head. You got to burn your fingers. You got to, you're going to crack your head on the wall. You're going to fail. My first real estate deal, I only lost $45,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Of course, I had no mentors or coaches. I had no one to guide me, and I went out there and just dove in, because I've always been like that. I've never been afraid of burning my fingers and losing money. I mean, I'll put it out there and give it a try. What the hell, right? Worst that can happen. You lose a few bucks and you go on to the next thing. But this was another amazing woo-woo thing that happened. I mentioned the students in here. I mentioned them quite a bit. Because every time I got hung up, one of them called me with a question that fit exactly into what I was doing at that moment. I went, well, there we go. I'm filled. That area is filled. So it was a perfect experience, and it was fun. And I'm going to do it again. I got 2 more manuscripts and start now.